to start with is, as you're probably all aware, the communication side of it is a huge part. It's probably the most important part, I think, for the volunteer managers, in my experience. Being able to communicate with the volunteers or providers is key. And what we're going to look at during this session is the different ways you can communicate with them and what kind of scenarios you would use these different ways of communication, essentially. So jumping straight into it, so one of the first things you would probably do after having to play around with the system, but the first real communications you may do might be using the invite function. Has anybody used the invite function on their system?
I'm not sure.
Okay, well, if I show you what it is, maybe it will trigger some trigger your memory. So if I share my entire screen. Okay, can everyone see my mouse moving around?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So both admins, we're going to be talking about admins today, but I just want to let you know, both admins and providers have an invite function. And it's under the volunteer management down to invite volunteer. And the page looks identical for both users. Okay. When you, what essentially allows you to do is put in, send out invite emails to a bunch of volunteers. So these are volunteers who are not on the system yet, volunteers that you want to register. So maybe you're at a freshers fair or something like that, and you want to, people are saying, yeah, I really want to volunteer in the Manchester area, if you're Ellen. Then you'd say, okay, then you could just put in their email addresses, Steve, 12345@.com. Okay, and you could put a comma in there as well and put another one in if you wanted to. Okay, then if you click on the invite button, it's going to send out an invite email to these two volunteers here. Okay. Now, if I wanted to, if I had a load of volunteers and I didn't want to keep typing them all out, you can upload them from an Excel file, essentially, a CSV file, which is like an Excel file. But you can, when you go into Excel, you can save it as CSV. I think you probably know that. Comma separated values, that's what it stands for. And you just put all the names, all the email addresses in column A, and you can upload it there. And it would do the same thing as typing them out here. When you send out the invite, it moves from this left one, invite volunteers, down to invited volunteers. So I can still flick back to it if I want, but it knows we're probably interested in the invited volunteers now. It says, okay, you've invited these two volunteers. They've not gone on to register, hence these red crosses here. Okay. I might wait for a week, and then I might send out a new re-invite if I want to here. Okay, if I want to like prompt them again. So that's the best way. The reason it's the best way is obviously you can see if they've actually gone on to register, rather than just kind of sending it and just hoping and you might spot the name in future. You can actually see and kind of follow them up if you want to. Okay, so one of the first kind of questions that might be prompted in your minds after showing you that is, well, what is that invite email that's sent out? So there's many kind of automated emails that are sent out from the system, and they can be edited and changed within the super admin menu. So for example, if a volunteer joins an opportunity, they get an email. If they register, they get an email. If there's there's probably like 50, maybe more than that, getting onto 100 different scenarios in the system where the system will automatically email the volunteers because it knows you have to email them. There's no reason why not to, for example, when they've registered. Okay, so if you go in the super admin menu down to customize emails, it shows all these emails here. And we can see these are the ones that are sent to volunteers. These are the ones that are sent to providers. For administrators, it's obviously less. But for the volunteers one, there'll be one down here that says invite on it. I'll find it somewhere. Invite volunteer, invite email. And if I click on the edit button next to it, I'll see what that actual email would say. You've been invited to join our volunteer network. You've been invited, and it puts in some information there. This stuff in the stars is where it's kind of inserting information from the system. So that's going to be a registration link. So that's what the volunteer would click on, and it would take them to the registration page. Okay, so you should have, before going live, you should have checked all these emails, or at least the ones that you think would affect you, your volunteer program, and make sure you're happy with the wording. But if you haven't, then it's probably a good exercise to do. Okay, to go through them and check the wording of them.
Steve, can you turn those on and off? I mean, I use them, but I only edit the ones that I know I want people to see. Can you Do they all go out
There's no-
automatically?
Yeah, they all go out automatically. Yeah. I mean, if there's one that
Because
you
I've
think,
never checked them all. I only check the ones that I know I use where I know I want to add information into, and I just sort of ignore the other ones, to be honest. I wasn't sure whether there was a way to.
there's not a way to switch them off. They're all kind of deemed important, like the chat room one. You mean you might look at that and say, well, I don't have chat rooms switched on. Those who don't know what chat rooms are, chat rooms are like a mini forum within each opportunity where volunteers can talk to each other. Well, you might say, well, I don't have that switched on, because the switch can just switch on and off. In which case,
Yeah.
obviously, you ignore everything which says chat room on it because it doesn't matter to you.
Yeah.
Steve, you can mute the emails in the opportunities.
In the opportunities you can, but not that won't mute the automated ones here that they get, when they register or when an hour trade is accepted. So what you're muting I'll come on to that in a bit, the opportunity ones. But yeah, they will automatically, there's no like on-off switch for these. Because you could end up switching off the one that says, okay, you've been removed from an opportunity. If someone switches that off and then you remove someone from the opportunity and you don't tell them, they're going to turn up for the opportunity. So it's some of them are quite critical that they
Yeah, no, it's
absolutely
fine.
do get
I mean,
that.
generally they're set up so they'll make sense to people, aren't they? And it's only the ones where you want to send specific information that you need to amend them. So that's fine.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Cool.
So that's
you can only get to this list if you're actually a super admin, can you?
Yeah, you need to be a super
Yeah.
admin. Yeah.
So I would have to get somebody else to
There'll be
things.
one super admin on your system, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
And they're always usually the first person on there is a super admin. And they can change you from an admin to a super admin. So when you go down here, down to admin accounts, so we're veering off already, aren't we? Down here, it's no problem. That's what this session's about, clearing up these odds and ends that you're not sure about. Down here, it says that person's a super admin, that person is not a super admin. So I could edit it if I want to, and I could make them a super admin and save it. And that would make that person a super admin as well, which means they would be able to see. And the only difference is you see this cog in the top right. That's the only difference visually, which gives you access to all the configuration options. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've got the invite function. So it's about inviting volunteers to register on the system. Now, providers also have this invite function. Okay, but it does an extra little step for providers when they invite volunteers. As well as inviting them to register, it's like a special kind of invite link. And when the volunteer registers, it actually links them to that provider, so that provider can see their information and communicate with them straight away. Because it's deemed, why on earth would they be registering via this provider's invite? You know what I mean? It'd be a strange way unless they had some affiliation, some association with that provider. So they get automatically linked if providers do it. Okay. So that's the invite. That may be your first kind of interaction in terms of like communicating with your users, with your volunteers. We've been through the automated emails. With these automated emails, just to clarify this, just to make sure you fully understand it. When you go down to like volunteers, volunteer registration, there's one. So what do they get when a volunteer registers? Like I say, with these stars here, so that's going to insert your organization name. If I wanted to change the wording of it, this is my organization name. I can just click on the name on the right hand side here and it inserts it there. So it will automatically take your organization name and put it in there in the actual email before it sends the email. So you can edit them and click on these buttons to the right to insert. It's like mail merge. You ever use mail merge back in the day? Yeah, it's very similar to that. Mail merge has a slightly different kind of symbols, but it works exactly the same way. So that's your automated emails. Then we've got, the main ways of communicating with volunteers are emails and SMS texts. Now, only admins can send SMS texts because there's a cost incurred with them. But emails can be sent obviously by admins or providers. Now, if you wanted to send an email to just a single volunteer, how would you go about it, Ellen? Just to a single volunteer. So there's one called Stephen Hale on here, a volunteer. How would you, talk me through what you would do?
I'd go to volunteer management. I'd search for the volunteer. I'd click on the volunteer, and on his profile, there's an option to contact him.
Yep. I'd click on the volunteer, on the checkbox, or click on the name?
Click on his name to take you into his profile.
And what would you do?
God, I don't.
It's all right. I'm testing you. Just see.
I know you're testing me. You're testing.
I
I would
reckon,
click on his email address at the top there, and then you can send him a message directly from his profile.
yeah, that's exactly right. Yes, exactly right. I weren't sure you're gonna get to it, but yeah, you're
I
absolutely
was
right.
like, what?
So
This is something really obvious that I do all the time. Why is he asking me this?
well, I see a lot. So basically, you can click on the name here, and if
Yeah.
I wanted to send a text message, I can click on the phone number
Yeah.
there, and that would send a text message. Just click on that, and I can send an email to them. And that's anywhere you go to. Anywhere you see the volunteer's name, you can click on the name, and it takes you to the volunteer's profile page, which is this page here, with all these options, all related to the volunteer, Stephen Hale, this example. And always at the top, you'll be able to click on the email address and send an email if you want to. A slightly faster way, only marginally faster, that's pretty much the fastest way, but might be just use the global search at the top to find the volunteer. When you start typing in the name, comes up, Stephen Hale, click on it, click on that, I'm sending an email. Let's send an email to an individual. You can also do it via the search volunteers page. So you could type in Steve. Got a checkbox here. Then I've got email down the bottom here. Click on email, does exactly the same thing. Or text down the bottom here, exactly the same thing. Now you may want to kind of send it to multiple volunteers, which is why we have these checkboxes. So obviously you want to send it to multiple volunteers. You don't want to click into each profile and having to click on their email address to, individually. You just want to select them. In which case you might say, okay, I'm going to send it to Chris Martin and Stephen Hale. Okay. Oh, wait there. Try again. Chris Martin and Stephen Hale. And here, and I get the action bar at the bottom. I click on email. Now it's going to send that email to those two volunteers. So that's if you're sending it to multiple volunteers. If you want to, now quite often you don't want to kind of scan through the list of thousands of volunteers, which I know some of you've got, finding the right name. So you'd want to filter them. So it's really important that you do get yourself familiar with these filters down here. Okay. Now, for some of the really interesting ones are, okay, show me date they last logged in. So show me every volunteer when the date they last logged in was before, I don't know, 6 months ago. I'll say 6 months ago. Search. Oh, wait, I didn't click on a date, did I? 1 second. On a date, search. Okay, so that's going to show me every volunteer who hasn't logged in for 6 months. Now, because this is a training system, it's most of the volunteers, obviously, because they're just made up data. But then I could select all, and I could click on email, and now I'm emailing everyone who hasn't logged in for 6 months. Why would I want to do that? Morag.
To see whether they're still interested, or you can knock them off the system entirely, or
try and re-engage with them. Try and find out. I noticed you haven't logged in for a while. Is try and re-engage with them basically. So other really interesting or things that you need to watch out for when you select all. This is kind of common mistakes that I see. When you select all, you're selecting everybody on this page. Okay, not every single person who matches the filter, just everyone you can see in this page. So it's showing the top 100 here. Okay, yours may be set to more than that. If you want to send it to every single person, okay, who meets the criteria, so say every single person whose the date they last logged in was before 6 months ago, then you would run the filter, but then you say show all on there, and that's going to show them all on the same page. And then when you're selecting all, you're going to be able to see all of them, every single one that you've selected. And then when you email, they're all going to get it. Now, we put something in the update to kind of cater for this, kind of prompt people to say, by the way, do you want to select all? Because there's, your filter that you ran of show me all females, there's 150 of them and there's only 100 showing on the page. So we prompt it, but currently at the moment, before the update's rolled out, it's something you just have to be aware of. Okay. Other interesting filters. There's one here called type, which has kind of a few hidden inside it. So show me all volunteers that have a photo or don't have a photo. Show me all volunteers who won't get bulk emails, which we're going to come on to shortly. It's an interesting one. All volunteers who have opted out of emails, and you're probably thinking, what's the difference? And I'll come on to that in a bit as well. Show me all volunteers within a certain group, a volunteer group. Or what other ones do I see? From a certain area. Has anyone got areas set up like set up their geographical regions on their system?
No.
No. There is the ability in the systems to let you know to specify geographical regions, like, for example, so Morag, what's your geographical region? What area do you cover?
Monmouthshire.
Monmouthshire. So you could say, if you wanted to, you could define central Monmouthshire, north, south, east, west, low economic areas, you know, like deprived areas, for lack of words, we call it. You know, you might specify certain areas, geographical areas that you're interested in. And that means you can say, show me every volunteer from this area, or show me every opportunity that's happening in this area. You can do multiple things, but the system needs to know what you mean by those areas first. And that's all done within the setup menu, super admin setup menu. You can define those areas. Okay, so filters are very important. Volunteer groups. Has anyone ever set up a volunteer group?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
all the time.
Good, good, good. So when you set up groups, volunteer groups, Steve's test group 2, you create the group first of all, and as we know, go to the search volunteers page, and you put those volunteers in that group. Just put that volunteer in, and this volunteer in. Go down to change group. Down here, I can say Steve's test group 2, add, and now those 2 volunteers have been put into that group, which means next time I want to find them in a hurry, I can just use the filter and go down to group member, group member, Steve's test group 2, and it shows those 2 volunteers. Select all, and I can just communicate with them easily.
Steve, I'm not sure if this is directly related to this. So if you want to save it, you know, until the end, that's fine. But you just made me think of something when you moved a volunteer from one group to another group. So if you have a volunteer that has registered or, you know, applied for a role, but actually they end up doing a different role, what, so, you know, or, hang on, so I've been, you know, impersonating them and going on and, you know, changing that application. And I wonder whether there's a way of doing that from, you know, an admin's
absolutely
perspective without going, you know, without impersonating them.
Yeah, moving them from one opportunity to another opportunity.
Yes.
Is you can do that as an admin much easier than you don't have to impersonate. Pretty much everything on the system you can do as an admin without impersonating. There's only very few things that you have to impersonate a user to do. But if you make a note of that, and when I go through at the end,
Okay.
at the end of the session, I'll show you how to do that. But essentially, you're removing someone from one opportunity, then you're manually adding them into another one. That's what you're doing.
Okay.
There's no like move across. It's like remove them from this one, add them to this one. And you can do, as an admin, you can do anything on the system. You can override any restrictions, all that kind of stuff. But I'll show you that at the end. So yes, we've got, you can highlight, you can filter your group members here, highlight them all, and send an email to them if you want to. You can also communicate with them. Oh, sorry, it's going to show you the groups. So you can also, when you go down to your volunteer groups now, you can see how many volunteers are in each of these groups. Now, because all 3 of you have used the system for quite a while, you may not be aware of, there's a link on here on the right hand side, and this link is a registration link. Okay, and if you share this link with anybody, it will ask them to register. They won't see anything different than a normal registration link. It will say, you know, put in your email address, first name, last name, the rest of it. But in the background, it's going to automatically put them into that group. In the same way, like I said, when a provider invites somebody onto the system, creates an invite, and they register in the same way, and they won't notice any difference from any other volunteer. But actually, in the background, we link them to that provider so they can communicate with them straight away, and you have a certain element of control over that volunteer straight away. Well, there's the same thing with groups. So groups have links on them. So if you ever want to kind of invite them, say, okay, an example might be, okay, I've got a freshers fair coming up. I've got to stand there. I'm going to send out an invite to them, but I want to separate them from the rest of the volunteers. So I might send them this link here, which means that when they register, they're automatically all going to be put into this group that I've called, Manchester University, Refreshers Fair 2022, whatever it is. Okay, so that's a kind of less known function I picked up on. Another key one, so that's finding like an individual volunteer. We just search for the name and we click on the search for the name up here usually and click on their email address, and then you send it to them. We know how to send it to groups of volunteers for the search volunteers page. Okay? And we know how to filter down, find specific groups of volunteers that meet a certain criteria using the filters, and then we select all, and then we can send. That's what we've covered. And then we've looked at groups as well. Opportunities is probably one of the more common ways that you're actually going to be communicating with volunteers. So when you go to an opportunity, we've got any volunteers on these. It was useful if you got a volunteer on one. Lunch club organizer. Okay. So when you go to the opportunity, I'm on the opportunities page here. Anywhere you see the name of the opportunity, you click on it and it takes you through to this page with all these options, which just like the volunteers page, all these options are all related to the specific opportunity, as we know. So when you click on volunteers here, it's showing me a list of every volunteer. Now these are the same, ignore that, it's just because they're different email addresses. But these are all of the same, all of the volunteers on the opportunity, regardless of what session they're on or anything like that. These are all the volunteers on the opportunity. So from here, I can select all. And again, same kind of concept. We see this action bar at the bottom. We can email them, text them, put them into a group if we want to. Send the confirmation email, which basically sends an email saying, just to confirm you are on this opportunity and these are the sessions that you've joined. If it's a session-based opportunity, that's what the confirmation email does. We've also got against the actual sessions. This one here it's a flexible opportunity, this one. So essentially it's one very long session is the way the system looks at it. So from here, I could email them or text them. And that's emailing everybody on that specific session. If I try and find one now, which has got lots of sessions on it, maybe this one here. Yep, it's got lots of sessions on it. Okay, and from here, I could click on the email button, which would email everybody on this particular session. So if I add someone into it now, I'm adding someone onto that session. Okay. Stephen's been added into this session here, and now if I clicked on the email button or the text button, it would email only that specific volunteer who's turning up at that time on that day. Okay. So that's a very useful tool to use. We also have automated emails that are sent out, and it's useful to be aware of it. So, for example, if you remove a volunteer from a session or an opportunity, it's always going to email them. It has to email them. They need to know that they've been removed, so they shouldn't turn up. So they're going to receive an email, and that again is going to be one of them automated emails in the super admin menu. It's going to appear in there if you want to change it. If you change the time of a session, so I'm going to edit this and change it from 9 o'clock to 8 o'clock, save it. It's going to automatically email the volunteers on that particular session and tell them it's changed to this time, because the system knows you need to pass that information on to them. Okay, so just be aware of when you're making changes to the system, when you're changing lots of times or moving people around, it's going to be sending emails unless you mute the emails within the opportunity. So on this summary tab at the top, so at the moment, I've just changed the time and I've added someone in there, and it would have emailed the volunteer. So if I go to the summary tab at the top, so this is a summary for the opportunity, I have the mute emails function here. And if I click on it now, action emails are currently muted, which means when I go back to the session and I start changing the time again, or adding people in it or removing people from it, it's not going to be emailing them. Okay, so it's going to mute all the emails. Does that make any questions around that? Is everyone okay with that?
So Steve, when you mute the opportunity emails,
yep,
all of the actions of emails around that opportunity are kind of muted.
Yep.
But those are the only emails that are stopped. So all the other emails, like registration emails or joining sessions emails, they will still go.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it's only ever going to affect automated automated, remember that word, automated emails on this particular opportunity. That's all I've done there.
Yeah.
Because I'm on the summary page for this opportunity, which is called a very weird name, but that's what I'm on. So it's only going to affect this opportunity, and it's only going to affect the automated emails. If I go to volunteers on here and I select a volunteer and click on email, they are going to receive that email because I've manually gone in there and want to send that email. But what it won't do is it won't send emails if I move them around from one session to another, or remove them from a session, or add people to a session, or change the time of a session, or anything where the system would be automatically sending out those emails to the volunteers. They're going to be muted.
Does it mute registration emails when new volunteers register?
No, because that's not to do with this opportunity. Registration is something.
What about if volunteers apply for that opportunity? Does it mute those?
If they apply for it, they would still be getting. They would still be getting that. Still be getting those emails. It's basically the emails it's muting are to do with any kind of actions you do within the opportunity, like I say, moving people around. The reason it was brought about, maybe if I explain the kind of origins of it, the reason it was brought about is because when people have large events, they tend to find they'll have lots of volunteers on the sessions, and then they'll say, actually, we need people earlier to set up equipment, and then they'll have to change the times of all the sessions. And then they'll say, actually, I've got too many people turning up that day on Monday, and I need more people on the Tuesday. And they want to remove people from the Monday and add them into the Tuesday, but they don't want the volunteers to be bombarded with emails with all these changes. So what they'll do is they'll mute the emails, they'll make all the changes to the times and who's on each of the sessions. Then right at the end, they'll send out a confirmation email. That confirmation email that I said, I'll send confirmation email down here. So they'll just highlight all the volunteers, send confirmation email, which is then going to email all the volunteers, say, okay, just to confirm, these are all the sessions you're on, and these are the times that the sessions are on.
Is the confirmation email an email you can edit?
No, it's not. I don't know. That's a good question, actually. I have to check. I don't think it is. It's mainly kind of because a lot of the information in the email is it's kind of it's what's the word?
Fed.
Yeah, it's fed from what are all the session dates and times, and and it's all kind of fed in from the system. But if you're not sure, like you say, you can send an email to yourself. And let's have a look. I can do it here actually while we're here. Confirmation email, summary of the sessions that the volunteer has joined. Its primary purpose is to clarify which sessions a volunteer is due to attend, and if there be considerable manual changes to the opportunity manager. So if I click on send there, then I'd need to get to the email inbox of this particular user. We're getting a bit off piste here, but it's okay. We've got time, plenty of flexibility with the time. So if I go to the email inbox, I'll wait for it to pick up. I can see it's changing over the sessions here. It's going to. I'll check it again. It's going to take a little while to come through, I think. But essentially, it does that. What it just said on the message there. It's going to send out a confirmation of these are all the sessions that you're on, and these are the times that they're on. That's all it does. But there's no kind of, there's nothing in there I'd imagine you'd want to change. It's just fed information from the system.
Okay.
Opportunity. So against the opportunities, we know how to email every volunteer on the opportunity. Go down to our opportunities, go to the opportunity. Okay, click on volunteers, select all, send email. We know how to send an email to all volunteers on a session. We go to the session, we see the one we're interested in, we click on the email. We know how to pause emails and why we would pause them. And then finally, against the opportunity, you've got promoting. So these are volunteers who are not on the opportunity yet, but you want to promote it to them. Okay, so when you click on the promote function, we have these options up here. And this is basically, all these options do the same thing. They're promoting this link here, which is the opportunity link, the link which a volunteer would go to, and it would show them the opportunity information and allow them to join it. It's sharing that using on different platforms. That's all it's doing. So I could copy this if I wanted to and send it to a volunteer. And if they click on it, well, you'll see. If I'm clicking it now, you'll see what it shows. goes straight to the opportunities page. This person's already on this opportunity, but it goes straight to the opportunities page and would allow them to join it.
So Steve, I used this, kind of this function recently, and what I was hoping it was going to do was it was going to make sure that everybody who sort of clicked on the link would then be in the list of kind of volunteers for that opportunity. So but what it actually did is that everybody clicked on the link. They then kind of clicked on register, and then they were just in the kind of registration list.
I think that was just I noticed that about 3 weeks ago or something like that, and there was a just like niggle in the system, but it's been changed since. I think you'll find now that it works. When they register, it drops them straight on the opportunity page. So you're right in what you're saying. So essentially, if I share this with someone who's logged in, they can just click on it and it will take them straight to the opportunity. If I share it with someone who's not registered on the system, then it will take them to the opportunities page, but it will say you need to register first, or either register or log in first, and it will prompt them to do that. Now, if they register, what you're saying, if they register, then they were just landed on the normal kind of search page at the end, and they had to refine the opportunity. But that's been changed in the last 2 or 3 weeks. So when they register, it remembers what opportunity they're looking at, and it will drop them straight on the opportunity page after registration.
They don't, do they? They don't, have to find the opportunity and then click join.
But they don't. Or they have to. It's going to land them on the opportunities page, from which they can click on the join.
Okay, because I said to Rolf, is there any way that the join button could be up at the top of the opportunity? Because I think what was happening is that they were registering and then they were landing back on the opportunity page, but kind of right up at the top, and they've got to scroll all the way down. They've got to know to scroll all the way down to find, the join button. And, they weren't doing that. So they were just ending up, sort of integrated into the long list of all the other volunteers.
Right. I mean, it depends. The join button you're talking about, it could say join, it could say apply, depending on how you set up the opportunity. And the join button could be 100 join buttons if there's 100 sessions on it, on the opportunity. If it was an opportunity which was a netball coach and it's on every Tuesday night for the whole year, then you got 52 sessions they can essentially join. So there's going to be 52 buttons there for them to say, I want to do that week, and I can't do that week on my holiday. So the buttons, just put, there's not always just a single button, but the apply button's always at the top. But the join buttons are just underneath on the left-hand side, underneath the information.
Okay.
But I'll take that feedback.
Well, actually, what I ended up doing was just in the opportunity, sort of text. The first line just said, kind of scroll down to the bottom to join. So, I just kind of told them what to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they should intuitively be able to find that. So I'll take that on board, and I'll pass it back to developer, and we'll do some what's the word for it? There's ways that we can watch. We can see the actions of the volunteers. We can see like heat maps. We don't know who they are, but we see heat maps of where people struggle and stuff. But we'll look in that particular page and we'll see if it's an issue across the board.
Okay.
But, okay, so we've got the link. So all these different ways here are just ways of sharing this link, essentially. Send the email out about this opportunity, invite volunteers who are via email onto the opportunity. Now, if you click on this one here, like send email about this opportunity, it essentially creates like a bulk email, you'll see it now if I click on it. So it has all the session information, the opportunity information in there. You can edit this information if you want to, edit what it says. And then you have some kind of basic filter options, and you can send it just like a normal bulk email. But it is a bulk email. It's just inserting information about the opportunity in there for you, rather than having to type it out yourself.
That's good.
Okay, if you go to the promote. If you go to the invite via email, then obviously you're putting in the email addresses of the volunteers, and again, it's going to send out that invite into opportunity email, including that link in it, so they can get straight to the opportunity. Then you've got all these Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and LinkedIn. it just creates a post on. It's going to ask you to log in when you click on them, but it will create a post on your Facebook profile with this link again on it for the volunteers to click on. So it's all about promoting. Now, one of the common ways I see, sometimes you might have an opportunity where you say, okay, I don't want every volunteer to know about this. I only want these 5 volunteers to know about this. Okay, in which case, when you're creating the opportunity, you know, there's an option there to hide from the search results, which means that when you create the opportunity, no other volunteer would be aware that it even exists, because it's not going to appear on the search pages anywhere. But by going to promote here, you can manually share the link to those 5 volunteers. Okay, meaning that you and those 5 volunteers now know it exists and now have a link to get them to the page, allowing them to join it. Okay, so pausing emails, promoting, changing the join email. Yeah, when a volunteer joins an opportunity, they get one of those automated emails. Okay. Customize emails down here. There'll be one for join opportunity in here. Yep, joins an opportunity, joins a flexible opportunity, and we can see the text that appears. Okay, so that's the email that they're going to get. Now, if you want to override that email for a particular opportunity, when you're creating the opportunity, there's the option down here, send a customized email. If I click on the checkbox, it allows me to override that automated email that they would get normally with whatever I type into here. There's something some people are not aware of. Has anyone ever used that before?
No.
Maybe something new.
Sorry, Steve, what's this bit?
So when you are, you know, we've got these automated emails that the system sends out. And one of those automated emails is when a volunteer joins an opportunity. It sends them an email out saying, thank you for joining this opportunity. And the wording of that email is, again, it's within the customized emails page here.
Yeah. That
was a volunteer joins opportunity. That's the email they would get when they join an opportunity. So what I'm saying is, when you create, if you want to send that, if you want to the volunteers to receive a different email to that when they're joining a particular opportunity. So say I'm creating an opportunity now and it's different from the rest of them, and I want them to get a different email when they join it, I can override that automated email by clicking on this checkbox here. So when I'm creating the opportunity, I click on the checkbox and I type whatever I want to type in here, and that is now going to be the email they get when somebody joins this new opportunity I'm creating. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's available if you're doing it through the provider one, as well as an admin, is it?
I'm pretty sure it is. I'm going to one now just to double check. So when the provider, I'm logged in as a provider here. I know that because it says provider in the account at the top. So if I create an opportunity, yep, it's down there. It's exactly the same for providers as it is for admins. Okay. Right. Is there any questions of anything I've covered before we move on to bulk emails? Good.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, of course you can. Yeah.
I'm a pain in the bum now. You know that send an customized email that you just spoke about there?
Yeah.
Is that something that could be added to the bulk opportunity upload list?
Is that something that we added to the bulk opportunity upload list? So who would it send it to?
So because I do a lot of, especially at this time of year, I do like the bulk upload of all the committee positions for the sports clubs, and I would want to maybe change that email a little bit specifically for those roles. So any roles that I would do that were related to the committee, I might want to say something slightly different, because at the moment I have to send out an email to the club captain and get them to send on the information to each of their committee members.
Okay, that's something we could. It was technically possible, I think. You obviously, Getting a bit off piece there, but obviously, this is bulk opportunity upload. You can create lots of flexible opportunities all on one page, and it asks you for the basic information about the flexible opportunity. Not all the fields we see here, like when you're creating a full opportunity, but just really basic information about them. And but it will create them like you can create 100 all at once. Now, what you're saying is you'd want different wording for the emails for each of those.
Not for each. It would just be one set wording for all those types of opportunity. So I do them normally all in one go. I mean, as it's happened, Rolf's had to upload them for me anyway because it was still taking me forever because there's only 10 on each page and I've got 70 odd clubs each with 10 opportunities. So
okay, I think it's something worth mentioning to Rolf. So you'd have like a single kind of email box at the bottom or something like that. To try to change the wording of it, but yeah, it's technically possible.
It's not absolutely essential. I was just wondering whether that.
No, if it can make your life easier, that's what we're here for.
It might not even be there that it is. It might be when they register rather than that. So that might be a changed registration email.
Yeah, give us a bell later on today, and I'll have a look at it. For
it
you.
Won't be today, Steve.
Oh.
But yes, I will keep it in my mind.
Best way is raise the support ticket. With all these things, that's always the best way, the fastest way to get.
No worries, thank you.
No worries. So we've got this bulk emails. I'm going to provide this page here. Get back to the admin page. So we've got a thing called bulk emails. So we have individual emails, which everybody always gets. Whenever you send an individual email out to somebody, I'll go into an opportunity, highlight a load of volunteers and send it to them. They're always going to get that. If I go to the search volunteers page and select a load of volunteers and send an email or an individual volunteer, they're always going to get that email because I'm manually trying to send it to them and selecting them. Okay, so it thinks, well, you must want them to receive this. They're called transactional emails in Gdpr language. Okay, so people can't opt out of those for obvious reasons. If you send an email saying, by the way, it's not on tomorrow, they need to receive that email. But we also have a thing called bulk emails, which is more your kind of generic kind of marketing emails. You can send them by going to messages and email, down to bulk email, okay, and it comes up like this. And we can put in our title, generic email here, put in some information. You can even put in, now there's more options available when you're sending a bulk email to like an individual email. So we can put images in here, we can put links in here. You can make it look a bit more fancy essentially. Information here. We can also attach images, so I can upload a new image if I want to. Select it, include opportunity information, like, okay, as well as this information, this text I'm typing in here, I want it to include an image, and I want to include details with a join-in link for the cafe volunteer opportunity. Okay. I want it to include volunteer statistics as well on there. Okay, and who do I want to restrict it to? Well, at the moment, it's only going to 3 recipients. Okay, so that may raise some alarm bells in my head. Why is it only 3 recipients? Well, that you'd be looking at your restrictions down here, and you'd also be checking, which volunteers have opted out of receiving bulk emails, because they can opt out, because these emails are kind of your non-essential ones. It's not massively important if they don't read it. It's not going to affect, they're not going to turn up for an opportunity that's not on if they don't read these emails. These are bulk emails, marketing emails, generic. Okay, but so you might ask, well, why is there only 3 recipients? If you remember back to the search volunteers page, in the filters there, you can actually filter by show me volunteers who have opted out of receiving emails, and then you can see a list of them, and that may answer the question of why you only have 3 recipients, because the vast majority have opted out of receiving these bulk emails. But at least you know what the reason is. Okay. Volunteers can opt in and out whenever they want. So when they log in to the system as a volunteer, I'll show you the volunteers page now. Okay, they've got notifications down here, receive weekly emails, chat notifications, receive group emails. This is your bulk emails essentially. So if they say no to that, then they're not going to be receiving bulk emails. Okay.
So Steve, sorry, can you go back to that?
Yep.
So can volunteers here opt out of emails that are linked to the opportunity?
No, because they're transactional emails.
Okay.
So it'd be that's what I said. You can't do that because the information may well be telling them not to turn up.
Yeah. So if a volunteer opts out of these emails, I can still go into a volunteer's profile and, you know, email them.
Yeah, the only thing they're opting out of by changing this to no is bulk emails. It's the only thing they're opting out of. Everything else, they get their email, and you know, you go into an opportunity and email everyone on the opportunity, they're going to get it. You go to the search volunteers page and highlight a load of volunteers and send it, they're going to get it. The only ones they're not going to receive is if you go down to bulk email. That's what they're not receiving. I mean, if they change their weekly email, you know, they get their weekly email sent on a Friday automatically from the system. If they change that to no, then obviously they wouldn't be receiving those ones either. And the chat notifications, if you have a chat room on an opportunity, and rather than emailing the volunteer and saying, oh, by the way, someone's added a new piece of chat into this opportunity that you're on, you know, then if they wouldn't be receiving those, you know,
Steve,
log in.
If we wanted to use the system, let's say, to send out, you know, a monthly volunteer newsletter, is that something the system can do? Like if I, you know, if I designed a volunteer, you know, a newsletter in a different, you know, like, I don't know, like a PDF, and I wanted to send it out using this system, does it?
I'd be inclined, not auto. I mean, it does it automatically for the weekly ones, but we haven't got like a monthly one or 6 monthly or anything like that. If you wanted to manually send it out, then I would just suggest you just use the bulk email function. Just type it out in here and send it each month, and you can say, well, these are the opportunities that have been added, and select the new ones that you want to include, and then just send it out to the volunteers that way. Because it's something which they may not want to get. You have to keep it in mind. I know I always think like an admin. We always want every volunteer to get every email. And reality is, some of them don't want to get bombarded with emails.
Yeah.
So they want.
I suppose that you're not, you know, you can't do everything, and like I would, you know, probably use, you know, MailChimp to send out, you know, like a volunteer newsletter, and you know, that's you know, probably a better system, isn't it, to do something like that than this?
I think so. I mean, there's more options, obviously, on you know, we use it here, MailChimp. And there's more options available because it's built. It's not a volunteer system. It's built specifically for sending large amounts of emails to people. So there's more. If you really wanted it that fancy and you didn't think this was going to be suffice, then you'd probably find the list, export the list out to Excel, and then copy and paste them into your MailChimp and send it out that way. Which is not unheard of. I've heard of other people say they didn't do that before, and that's fine. There's no issues.
When you said about weekly emails, what's that set up as in a sort of default thing? I mean, is everybody supposed to be getting a weekly email, or does it only happen if you particularly set that up? Or
so it will go to unless they've opted out of the weekly emails, which they are kind of prompted to do when they register. It says it forces them to make the choice of opting in or opting out. Then as long as they've kind of opted into that, then they will get a weekly email. But it depends on your system setup. You can turn the weekly emails on and off. So if you go into the super admin menu and go down to options, you're going to have email notifications. Down here, we're going to have send weekly emails somewhere. Send weekly emails set to yes. So every volunteer on this system, which are all made up volunteers, they're all going to be Friday at 6 o'clock. They're all going to be getting an email saying, and that weekly email shot they get basically says, okay, this is how many hours you've logged. These are new opportunities that have been added in the last 7 days. And these are opportunities that you're on that are about to take place in the next 7 days. So that's what it includes. If you're ever not sure, you should be receiving them. You register as a volunteer and just opt into it and you receive it. But first of all, check that it's switched on. It may not be switched on in your system. If no one's ever mentioned it to you before and you're on your system as a volunteer and you've never received one, the chances are you've either your volunteers either opted out of receiving emails or it's just not switched on your system.
I suspect ours is not switched on, but it may have been when we first got the system, because I remember getting stuff, and certainly my volunteers would be coming back to me and going, you know, why we keep getting these things which don't tell us, you know, because mine are all flexible opportunities. So, you know, they're not changing particularly from one week to another anyway. And they just go, this is it's just annoying. So I imagine we don't have it switched on.
Maybe it's switched off. Yeah, they can individually just go to their note, as you saw before. They can log in themselves, go to notifications, and say just switch it off themselves and save it, which means they won't get it anymore. But quite often, I think they phone you up, don't they? rather than trying to find it when they're logged in, they phone you up.
Most of my volunteers are retired people.
Yeah.
And, you know, they only do these things if they absolutely have to.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Yes.
Steve, if you have the weekly emails off, do volunteers still get, you know, a notification if they've got a session coming up? Does the system sort of, you know? Oh yeah,
the only email it's going to affect is the weekly email shot that goes out on Friday. So if they switch it off, you saw it in the option here. If they switch that off, if that's set to no, then they won't get the weekly email at 5 o'clock. If that's set to no, then they won't receive any bulk emails. But everything else they will receive.
Okay.
Steve, I'm sorry, I need to go. I've got a running group at 5 minutes. So thank you very much for today.
No problem. There's not.
I'll catch up on the recording if there's anything else at the end.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks
Cheers,
for your
guys.
time.
Nice to see you all. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, and got notifications and news, which are the last two kind of communication methods. So we've covered all the email ones now, to emails, individual volunteers, groups of volunteers, volunteers on opportunities, this, that, and the other. But there's also a couple of other ways you can get in contact or communicate with volunteers. And one of the key ways is notifications. So when you go to notifications on here, these are in-system notifications. Okay, so when they log in, it's a notification they're going to see straight away when they log in. Okay, and it can be set up by clicking on the add button here. I put in, this is my new notification. Say who's going to receive it. I want providers to receive it and volunteers to receive it from this date to this date. So it goes on for a week. Send. Okay. Now, if I am a volunteer now and I log into the system, notifications right in the middle. This is my new notification. It's the first thing they see when they log in. Okay. If I'm a provider on the system, let me impersonate a provider. Slides in from the right hand side for providers. Notifications. This is my new notification. I can close that down if they've read it. Okay. So that's.
Is it only admins who can set up a notification then?
Yes, it's only admins who can set up the notifications. You can set them up for volunteers or providers.
And
when
this,
sorry, go on.
And this, you know, just appears on their profiles. It doesn't get sent to them.
No, just it's in-system notifications.
Okay.
So nothing's sent out. It's just only when they log into the system, it's made very evident to them, this whatever notification message you put in there.
And it's for all volunteers and all providers. You can't make it any more specific than.
No, it's for all. It's usually things like, can you please remember to log your hours? Is a common one I see for providers. For volunteers, it may be, can you please add your qualifications or add a photo, which helps us identify you on site, things like that. Kind of generic information which you'd want them to be aware of. It's not usually kind of, oh, I've got an opportunity to start. It could be, but it's not usually that kind of stuff specific to it's quite generic kind of, generic notifications. Is that okay? Is there any questions over notifications?
No, that's a good function.
Yeah, you can click on delete as well if you want to stop it prematurely. You don't want to wait for the week to finish. We've also got news on here.
Sorry, Steve, can I just ask one thing on that? Do the notifications appear on the mobile app?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I imagine it does, but I don't know the answer. I'll find out for you.
Okay.
I know it definitely appears on the new version of the app, which we've got coming out in the very near future. But I'm not sure on the current version of the app whether it does it.
Okay.
I'll find out for you. Okay, so we've also got a thing called news, which for all intents and purposes is virtually identical to notifications. The difference is it allows you to put, it's just for volunteers, and it allows you to put more types of information like images in there and this, that, and the other. So if I had a news story on here, upcoming event, okay, story title, right in there, description, yeah, put in a link if I wanted to. I could choose an image here if I wanted to, and I can add that news story. Okay, so that's been added in there as a news story. So from the volunteers side, what they see, refresh the page, they see latest news appears here. Okay, and if they click on it, upcoming event takes them through to that page, which has the information on there, the title, the information, and the link that I just put in there. Okay, so that's a news story. And that is it